Hey, this is Nick from Nick's Handmade Crochet, and today I would like to talk to you about and demonstrate how to get started on making your very first beanie. And I know this might sound really overwhelming, but if you can do a double crochet, you will be able to do this pattern. When I say pattern, I mean just following along this tutorial. You won't even need to really follow along with the tutorial once you have some basics. Now, I did find a fabulous website that actually gave you instructions on how you measure up the beginning of your crochet beanie and how many stitches you need to add on, and then how many increases you need. This is by measurement, not so much stitch. So for this example, I've just got some yarn that I've used before, and with reading your patterns, this particular 8-ply yarn suggests a 5mm crochet hook, so I'm going to use that. So a few supplies with crochet as always, some yarn, the appropriate size hook, so I'm using my Clover 5mm hook, which I love, some scissors, some yarn needles, and a stitch marker. Sorry, my mind went blank there for a minute. Stitch marker and a tape measure, because for this particular tutorial you will need the to measure how many rounds to do via the inches or centimeters. All right, so I'm just going to pop these to the side for a minute. So let's start with a bigger ball. And so this yarn's got what's called little neps in them. That's what it's described on the yarn label, neps. So it's 90% superwash wool, 7% acrylic, and viscose, 3% viscose. And that makes up, the viscose I think makes up these little splashes of colour throughout the yarn. I could be wrong, but that's my interpretation of what that is. So again, just going to make a little slip knot, and my working yarn to my left because I'm right-handed. So I'm going to chain 6. So this is a chain method. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you don't have to do anything fancy. All you do is get your hook from this side. We're going to count back 6. Remember, this bit of yarn on our hook doesn't count, and this stitch right next to the hook sometimes can be very small. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just going to go into that loop there, grab my yarn, pull that through, and pull it through this. So there we have a little ring. So I'm going to chain up 3, and for the size of the hat I'm going to do, and because I'm using 8-ply, the chart suggests that we do 12 double crochets into that circle as our beginning round. So double crochets, the yarn over the hook, go into the hole, we pull that yarn through. We have 3 pieces of yarn on our hook. We're going to pull through 2 and pull through 2. So we're just going to keep doing that until we get to our 12. Oops. And opposed to doing a magic circle where you really have to keep an eye on and hold of the beginning. The beauty of doing this chain method is that it's all enclosed to start, and even if you lose something, it's not such a drama. Oops. All right, let's just see where we are. I did the chain up 3, and for this I'm not going to count that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so let's just go backwards. I like to go backwards count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I've got one too many on. That off. Always best to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that first chain up 3 I don't count. I'm just going to go, I'm counting from that stitch here. So there's our V. Just going to go under the V, pull the yarn through, and pull the yarn through. So that's at the beginning of our hat and something in the round. And then if you pull your yarn from the back, put a bit of tension, you can see it's going to close up. So much easier. And then when you actually, even though it's in the round and you've put it in, I will weave this in back and forth a few times at the end, just to, you know, secure it for extra security. It should be fine as is, but I do like to weave my ends in several times. So now that we've got our 12, we're going to increase. Now increasing is just adding another stitch into the same place where we do a stitch. So example, I'm going 1, 2, 3, and that will be my first chain now, and or my first double crochet, and I'm going to go back into that and do another double crochet. So that's an increase because we have 2 stitches in the 1 stitch that we made from the row before. So we're going to do this all the way around so that we end up with 24 stitches. So we start with 12, then we're going to have 24. So that's 1, 2, into that stitch there, do a double crochet, and we're going to go back into that same one, do another double crochet. So 1, 2, 3. Make sure you don't go back into the same one. You might find the next one over. 4, 5. Oh, into the stitch I accidentally went into the space between those. So I'm going to make sure that I go under that V and correctly. It's getting a bit tight because I'm not keeping an eye on my tension from my ball in my basket. All right, finish off this row. So before I go any further, I am going to go back and count, because you don't want to get sort of a few rows into it and then realise that you've got too many stitches or too few stitches. So you can either pull 2 apart at a time and see that then, or go back and count your V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, because I'm counting that first stitch now. That first chain 3 is my first double crochet. So we're going to join our round, our first round of increases. So 1, 2, 3. So there's 2 ways that you can come underneath and try and get both parts of that V on your hook, and that can be tricky doing it that way. So 1, 2, 3. So there's that V, and quite often people will just go into that first stitch there like that and pull that through. So it's sort of in the middle but not quite at the top. Just means that this second stitch here looks a bit different. So we've completed that first round. Now we need to do another increase round, excuse me. 1, 2, 3. So we're doing 1 double crochet, and then in the next double crochet from the previous round, which was the increase, we're going to do 2 into that this time. So we're increasing again, but in every second stitch around. So that was my first double crochet. Then I've done 2. Now I'm doing 1 double crochet in the next stitch, and then I'm going to do 2 in the next one. 1, and then another one into the same stitch from the previous row. 1 into the next, and then I'm going to do 2 into the next. And it just means that from the row below, I've done 1 into the first stitch, and then we did the second double crochet we did to make that increase. I'm going to put 2 into the second one of that increase, and that will become a bit of a pattern around for this particular way of doing a hat. Now there's lots of different ways of increasing and into which stitch and things like that, but we're trying to keep it as basic as possible. So we have our chain 3, which is 1, then we've done 2 into the next stitch. 1, 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 2 in the next stitch. So you can do this with double crochet, single crochet, half double crochet, triple crochet, any stitch you want. I like double crochet because it just sort of works up a little bit quicker. If you wanted a tighter weave with your crochet, then you do single because it's a little bit less gapey. But this is wool, so it's going to keep your head nice and warm. 1 and 2. So if we look at the previous row, there was the 2 stitches into the 1 space. That was our increase. So the first one we're always going to do 1, and where the second increase was, I'm going to do 2. I'll just finish up this row, this round I should say. It's a row, I guess we call something that's going back and forth, and we're actually going in the round. So I did 2 there, 1, so I'm up to 2 again. So again, just always flicking back and checking your work just to see what you're doing. So the other way that you know that you're sort of on track before you count is I started with one and then did one and then an increase. So I'm going to finish with one and an increase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So 12, 24, 36, and the next round should be 48. Because we have 12 stitches, every time we do an increase, it'll increase the round in a multiple of that number. So we've slip stitched and we're going to chain up 3 again. That's our first double crochet. And the row before we had 1 and then 2 into the next, 1, 2 into the next. This time we're going to do 2 stitches. Find that next stitch. And then the increase, which will be increasing on the second stitch of the previous row's increase. So 1, 2, so we're going 2 double crochets and an increase. So that was this 1, we're going 1 above that one. There's an increase, but we're going to do the next increase on the second part of that previous increase. 1. So there's 2 there, 1, 2, and then increase. One, 2, increase. 1, 2, increase. So if you ever hear an increase, it usually just means that there's going to be 2 stitches into 1 stitch of the previous row. It could be 3 stitches into the previous row, depending on your pattern. And that's how you just keep on increasing the circumference of the first part of making a beanie. So this colour's not too blending in with my little background here. So again, I've got a bit distracted. I'm watching something on Netflix or the phone rings or something happens and you think, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure out where I am? So for this part of doing crochet, it's not too bad to find where you were, because I can see that there were 2 stitches in that previous stitch there, and I've got 1, 2, 2, a single and a single, followed by 2 stitches in the one spot. So I know that I'm doing 1, 1, and increasing into the next stitch. 1, 1, increasing. 1, 1, increasing. So this is our pattern all the way around. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and then an increase into the next stitch along. One, 2, increase. And as I said, because we're finishing, we started with 1 double crochet, a second double crochet, and then an increase, the pattern at the end should be the same. So we should have one double crochet, then the second double crochet, and then the increase, and we should be at the end of our round. So with the chain up method, when you're first crocheting, it will be obvious to you where that is, and once you've finished your hat, you can just wear that at the back and it's not too bad. And there's lots of YouTube videos on how you can chain up using different types of stitches and techniques, and sometimes you don't even need to join and chain up. But when you're starting, I think this might be just sort of the easiest because you understand a chain and then you understand a double crochet. So I know I've finished in the right place, but I still want to make sure that my stitch is okay. 12, 24, 36, 48. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the top of the chain 3, which was a double crochet. So a bit remiss of me that I haven't been doing this using the stitch marker, because as you increase your rows, sometimes when you're doing that chain 3 up, it's hard to see where that stitch is. So you can use your stitch marker to pop it in there, and that way when you're coming around to join, you can see what it is. And as I've described before in other videos, that when you chain up 3, it's sort of on the side, and instead of going down the middle this way, you can actually see, and you've gone underneath that V now. Take that out. It's not always easy to put your hook in with the stitch marker, but you can give it a go. So how do I know how many rows I'm going to keep going? I'm going to measure from one side to the other, and this is just, it's 4.25 inches, or just over 10 and a bit centimeters. So we'll try and pop up that chart again. So depending on the width here, that would probably make a teeny weeny little preemie beanie. And if I wanted to say do something a bit bigger and I want to get to 5, I'm just going to keep on increasing my rounds until it measures 5. Probably a newborn. Could be, you know, I might need to get my circumference measuring across to about 7 inches for a big adult. So again, using the little rules that I found on this particular website. I think it's called Umbaqua. Sorry about that pronunciation, but it's just a little chart, and as I said, I'm going to pop it in the video, and it just means that you can work out how big it's going to be. You don't need a pattern. You can just use double crochet, go around, and to make it bigger, all you're going to do is keep on increasing. So the first row we did 12 stitches as our base, then we did 2 stitches in every stitch from that 12, so we got 24. So then we did 1 stitch and then the increase, then we did 2 stitches and then the increase, and now we're going to do 3 stitches in the and then the increase. So 1, 2, 3, and that was the increase stitch from before. And in the second part of that increase, I'm going to do my increase my 2 double crochets in this. So 1, 2, 3, and increase. 1, 2, 3, increase. 1, 2, 3, increase. 1, 2, 3. There's 2 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 2 stitches, and you can sort of see the pattern of all these increases which line up as well. So for your very first project, I don't think that matters so much. You really have to pull it apart, but it gives you an indication of that you're sort of on track where all your increases are. You can see this little pattern. Oops. Pull it up. There's increase there, increase there, increase on the row before. You can see that. Let's keep going. I'm up to doing three double crochets in the increase, and I'm just going to move this along, and I might speed it up in the actual video to, let's just sew in. Alright, let's see if I can pause this and then meet you up at the end when you're finished.